Okay, so we're now ready to paint the model. I'm not a painting expert, it's not my forte, it's part of the reason I started doing the kits rather than finished models. But I will talk you through how I'll be painting this model and mention anything else that I know is useful to know when it comes to painting. So, I'm going to start with the bare model. These parts, because we've literally just built them, they've not had time to collect any dust on them or anything or any debris. It's still worth giving them a wipe down with a tack cloth or something like that if you particularly wanted to get a very good finish. But otherwise, just wipe them down gently and they'll be ready to go now because we've done all that sanding already. If you notice any burrs, any edges, give them a quick sand now. It's equally certain models, less so on the big square trailer stuff, but the slurry tankers, for example, the filler can help bring out the detail on some stuff. So where the tank and the ends of the tanks glue in, you can put a bit of filler, Revel, Plasto model filler, or even general isopropyl carb body filler will do the job. Give that a sand down once it's set. But these ones themselves, these are ready to go. If you've built it and it's been sat around for a while, it's going to have built up a little bit of dust. It may have got some grease and stuff and fingerprints. So just give it a quick wash off. In some soapy water. Make sure you rinse it thoroughly so there's no soap left over, and then leave it out to dry. Don't leave them on the radiator because you'll warp the plastic slightly, but yeah. So paint itself, because it's made of plastic, it's going to want a primer. We're going to use high coat grey plastic primer. So this is exactly the same as Halford's grey plastic primer. I know, so I've bought this in bulk now because my local Halfords is a small Halfords. They're no longer stocking the full range in their primers, so it's the bigger stores will have the grey plastic primer. Just to be able to pick up grey primer, it will do the job. What you'll notice is if you are moving those models around a lot, it might just scratch the paint off slightly. This works more like etch primer on the plastic, so it actually eats onto the plastic and stops that scratching from occurring in the same way. So every model I do, basically I start out with the grey plastic primer. Depending on the top coat colour, that's enough. For the greens that we're using today with the Bailey, we won't have to put anything else on. If you were painting the Richard Western, which is yellow, we'd go and put either a white or a yellow primer over the top. You can get them coloured for the plastic, but the way that I work, I have so much of the grey plastic that I'll then buy a normal kind of either yellow filler primer, red oxide primer, or a white primer. Obviously with the reds, we're going for the red colours. They recommend red for black as well. Don't particularly know why, and you can still use a grey. So we're going to put that on first, and then we're going to follow it up with a top coat. So within each instruction manual, you can scroll through and it will tell you what top coats to use. With the Bailey, it gets a bit complicated. So Bailey Green is their own mixed colour of paint, supposedly based partly off John Deere Green, but then with some modifications to the mix. So if you can get hold of a can of Bailey Green, like an aerosol, perfect, go and do that. If not, there's two main options. So as you can see, both Bailey models, both are very different green when you look at them, but if you studied them against photos, they both seem like the right green. So this is RAL 6002. So when working with the RAL codes, it's custom mixed paint. So this is done by Wigan Car Body Supplies because they're my local supplier. But any local car body supply shop should be able to mix to a RAL code. So the lighter green that's on this model, that's RAL 6002. And the darker green, which I feel is slightly more accurate. I used to think this was new Bailey green, this was old Bailey green. I think overall this is just a slightly closer colour in general, particularly if you've got other models already in your collection. So that's RAL 6005. Again, that's a custom mixed can. They're a little bit more expensive. I think these are about £15 a can at the moment. However, what you can also opt for is a Halford's colour. So Halford spray paints are great. I run to them whenever I can. If they've got a colour that will work, I will use it. They've recently updated all their paint codes. So if an instruction manual has not got this S number, so for example S7090, just looking at the manual here, it's got Halford's Ford Laurel Green. Just drop us a message. I am slowly updating the manuals. It is quite a time consuming process, but drop us a message. I can advise which can you'd probably need. These are about £10–11 a can now, so they're a cheaper option than the custom mixes, and they go on really well. They apply well, they work well, yeah, so it's another good choice to use, and almost every manual will have a Halfords colour option in them. So painting wise, it's the 1st of January here, it's just gone cold for the start of the year. Issues with painting are temperature and moisture. So you don't want to paint in the rain, even if you can get under cover, because the moisture content in the air will get into the paint and it will dry matte. Luckily we're on a dry day today, so I can get that paint on. However, it is cold outside and it won't like that. The cold will also make the paint dry matte. So what we're going to do is make sure that everything's nice and warm. So I've been working on these in a warm room. I'm happy that these are at a decent temperature. What I'm just going to do, I've had the primer sat on the radiator here. I'm just going to drop that in some boiling water now as well, just to make sure that it is nice and up to temperature. And then we'll take it outside, we'll spray it outside. You don't want to be spraying inside. There's nothing nice in these, none of what you'd be breathing in is any good. Make sure you wear the right PPE, read up on what's best for you, what you need to be wearing and where you're doing it. And then as soon as I've painted it, I'm going to bring it back in and sit it straight back on the radiator to keep that heat in, to keep that gloss finish on, and also for speed, particularly with the primer side of it. If I can get that back on the heat, I can probably get the whole thing painted today. Once it's painted, we're going to leave it to dry overnight, and then we'll come back to it in the morning. The longer you can leave it to dry, the better. I'm on a bit of a schedule, so I need to get it done tomorrow. So yeah, we'll show you first of all how to warm the cans up, and then we'll show you the painting setup itself. So just boiled the kettle up. Just be very careful when doing this. The can wants to be a little bit warm already from being sat on the radiator. I'm just gonna put some boiling water into a jug and then gently drop the can into it. You want to be really careful. If you're heating cans up, there's that risk of explosion. Do it at your own risk and at your own the best way of painting is waiting until the summer when everything's already naturally warm and work with it then. Working in the middle of winter, you've got those extra challenges, especially if, like me, you have nowhere inside and heated to paint. You're going to be doing it outside. So we want everything to be as warm as possible when we start. That doesn't need to be in there long. We'll be ready to go with the actual painting soon. So we'll drop to that now. Okay, so I spoke too soon then when I said it wasn't raining. It has just started spitting outside, so I quickly mocked this up in the garage. Just a scrap piece of wood to be working on at height to try and make it nice to video. So yeah, painting wise, we've got our 3 main bits. We've also got a couple of smaller bits with the Bailey. So that's just the ladders and the mud guards that we'll spray separately because they're going to go black and that's going to go silver. But spraying, nice and simple. The one key technique is do not lather it on. The thinner the layer, the better. So if we start with the chassis here, all I'm going to do, nice and quick, over it. We're not trying to build up huge layers. We're not looking for the colour to change immediately. We just want to build it up nice and easily. What we're going to do is we're going to aim at anywhere that's more in depth to start with. And what you'll start to notice is that when you're working in those areas, you're actually covering the outer area anyway. If you try to spray the outer areas, the big flat surfaces to start with, what you would end up doing is when you then went in to try and pick up all the intricate narrow bits, you'll have just filled the place with paint and there'll be runs and stuff everywhere. So like you can see, barely putting any paint on to start with, building that layer up nice and gently, working into the detailed areas to start with and going from there. You can see I'm quite short, sharp bursts on the can here, and that's more the size of the part. You'll see when we move on to the body now. So we're going to work on the inside of the body to start with longer, more even runs, because you'll notice on the big flat surfaces if it's been stop-start with the paint. So what I've done there is get the inside all painted up first, and I can then start to look to the outside. Again, just building those layers up, looking where the shadows are, looking where the edges and crevices are, and making sure that we get a nice even cover on everything. So we're coming in largely at an angle to capture those corners. And once more, try and angle this towards the camera well. So just across, get that base on, and then come in from the sides where we're going to pick up on all those angled edges. What we're then going to have to do, once that's sort of cured off a little bit, is we'll flip it over, and we'll do that the same on the bottom where we'll have missed a lot of parts. Okay, start from the back. You're going to want to start from anywhere where you're resting it on a flat surface, because what you don't want to do is rest the drying part on a flat surface. A lot of people, I think, choose to hang parts as well, so you could put all these all on a wire, and it's probably the better way to do it. But this is quite quick, quite efficient. It does take that little bit more patience, and we might have a couple of bits where we're wanting to touch up afterwards. But again, working on those angles to get everything covered without building the paint up too much. These smaller, lighter parts, this is going to work well now that we've got some paint down. That's going to stick itself onto the paint and not blow away in the same way. With the primer, we're not worrying too much about marks and things, because that's going to be hidden by the top coat. But you do just want to be aware not to leave anything resting on the flat, as when you come to pick it up, the paint will have peeled off. What I might have accidentally done here is show you why we washed those resin parts, but I think I've got away with it actually. But you can sometimes see that the paint will start to pool and fishnet. You can just about see it. The lighting's not great in here, but yeah. So then we'll come back now. This will have dried off just enough to be able to flip it. It is nowhere near dry. Let me see if I can frame that back in shot. And we're going to go under the underside. Now you can see as well where, because we've been spraying from above, it's missed the top corner edges of the part here. So we're going to go back in and fill all of those in. Nice and simple. And we're going to have to do exactly the same now on the top. Come at it from one direction, nice and light. And then come at it from another. Just making sure that we've got the coat over everything. It's all looking suitable. Perfect. So what we'll do is we'll just leave that out of the paint zone itself. We'll let that primer dry off now. If you can, leave it a day. Primer likes to be sat for as long as possible as well. Let it vent out. We're not going to leave it that long. I'm going to let these dry up a little bit so I can then move them inside, put them on the radiator, give them about an hour to dry off properly. Then we'll come back and do that top coat. So I've just brought them in now, trapped them on the radiator there. So they're just under a nice bit of packaging, keep the paint off the radiator. They just need to be in a warm environment to dry, basically. So I'll give these probably an hour now, and then we'll go back out and we'll put that top coat on. Okay, so we're back in the garage again. Parts dry. They've been on the radiator for sort of an hour now. Temperature is definitely dropping, so we are trying to rush through this now. So this has been sat in the warm water as well. So this is RAL 005, 6005 is what I'm going to use, just to match the other ones that we've already done. So they all look the same, sat on the shelf next to each other. So the top coat, same as the primer, nice light coats. We're going to build this up in a few coats. Hopefully this paint still works. It's a year or so old, so it might have lost some of the pressure in the can. Soon find out. Yeah, so once again, I'm going to start on the inside of the body, then come to the outside. We'll have to let it dry this time before I can pick it up and turn it. And then we'll go over it again. We'll build the coats up, we'll put a couple of coats onto this one. So, working on the inside. Can's actually really nice. So the Halfords cans are quite highly pressurised, so they really will push the paint on very quick, very fast. But they are easy to get hold of, and they're a little bit cheaper.
But you can see we're not putting masses of paint on here. Just building those layers up slowly. Again, working at those angles so that we get the paint into the corners. Don't think this is going to be my finest work, but it is what it is. So the other thing to note with the spray cans, you need to keep them held upright. If you hold them upside down or on the flat, they're going to lose their suction from the paint underneath. So do the same now. Really not going crazy on the paintwork, so you can see now that that isn't actually fully turned green yet, but I'm not going to put any more on now. I'm going to go over the other side, let it all dry off, and we'll get that final colour change in the next coat. You do not need to pile paint on. All that piling it on is going to do is cause the paint to run. And once it's ran, we're going to have to sand it back anyway and put another layer on. So it's much easier to work this way around. So again, like I was saying with the primer, we're working into the detailed areas to start with, and then we'll come back and pick up anything on the outside that we miss. But it's unlikely to have much of that. I can already see we're getting slightly too much top coat on this now. Flip it over, because it's the way it's sitting, we can flip this. Slightly build that paint up again. It's really tempting to put too much on, but we will prevail from doing that. What I am going to do, I'm going to cheat here, just put that dowel down, and that means that this body is now going to sit on just 2 tiny points, and that will let me paint the bottom without causing too much damage to the paint. Any little bits of damage we can come in and pick up later on, and I will show you tomorrow how we'd go about doing that. My garage is full of junk, hence why I'm having to climb all over anything and everything to get this paint on. Then, nice and easy, over the top. So the difficult bits on painting these are getting into those areas where there's lots of corners. So the corners, the paint will go over them rather than into them. So it's gently easing that paint in everywhere. Obviously, wear your mask, wear whatever PPE you need to keep yourself safe. I am aware that I am not following my own advice there. But yeah, so what we'll do, we'll leave that to dry. What I will do actually is I'll put these back in a box, take them back inside, leave them on the radiator, and then we will let that dry out, get another coat on it. So what I won't show you putting another coat on. All we're going to do is literally leave those to dry for half an hour or so, bring them back out here, go over it all again, put that coat on. I'll have a look in some proper lighting as to whether we need to go to a third coat or not. So we're just looking to make sure it's all built up. Hopefully we won't do. We'll then leave it on the radiators overnight to dry out, and we'll pick it back up in the morning, which is possibly what we cut to now.
Just before we do cut to tomorrow, little additional extra side pieces that we're going to paint. So we've got the ladder and we've got the mud flaps. So you can, generally anything silver like the ladder, I'll use aluminium effect paint from High Coat, so pick this up from the range, I think. Maybe Halford sell it these days as well. Really easy to use paint. I use it for anything where it's a galv effect, so the livestock trailer we bought out recently, stuff like that. However, obviously 10 quid a can to paint that is a bit expensive. So what I've got as well is a little pot of Tamiya, so that's XF16 paint. Hobbycraft, the range, they'll all have these size pots, they're a couple of quid for a pot. Tamiya, Rebel, Humbrol, they'll all do their own version of these colours. So I'm using the XF16 for the aluminium, and then I'm going to brush paint with XF85 rubber black for the mudguards. Not really any different to matte black, but obviously that's what I've got to hand, so that's what I'm going to use. Any matte black paint, any modelling paints, they'll do the job nicely. Equally, spray paint them, do it however you want to do them. So just as an example, crack open that black. I've already given these a shake and a stir, so they're ready to work with. But all we are doing, getting a bit of paint on the brush, not overloading the brush, and then just up and down on it, get into the details. Don't worry about covering everything because we're going to put 2 coats on. And you're just going to go around and do that until it's all black. Then we're going to leave it to dry and repeat the process. Same with the silver. And now we probably will cut to tomorrow. Okay, so we've left that to dry overnight now. These have just been sat on the radiator to try and keep some gloss to the finish, and actually they've come out quite nice and shiny, which is what we wanted. If they hadn't done, that would have been either due to the temperature or due to the moisture in the air, because it was sort of trying to rain. Moisture in the air, nothing you can do. You're just going to have to wait for a dry day and just put another coat straight over the top of it. You might want to key it back a little bit, but other than that, paint straight back over the top when it's dry. The cold, again, it needs to be slightly warm at least. So I was running in and out of the garage getting these back on the radiator to get them warm, keeping those spray cans warm as well. So yeah, ideally, if you've got the patience, which I certainly don't have, wait till the summer, wait until a warmer day in the spring or something to paint them. You can build up multiple kits over the winter and paint them all in one go in the summer. So we're going to move on now to the other parts left in the box. First of all, the stickers basically, so we'll put those on while it's unassembled, and then we'll build up the rest of it, so we'll put the rams into place and stuff like that. So we're going to start off putting the conspicuity tape on. So that's yellow and red self-adhesive vinyl that comes in the kit. Some of them also have silver in them. The way we're going to do this is we're going to cut it into 2mm strips. So all I'm going to do is turn it over onto that paper back side. Take a steel rule, any ruler really, but because we're going to be cutting with a craft knife, a steel one is better. And we're just going to mark a couple of notches every 2mm. So I'm going to cut probably 4 or 5 strips. Just to make sure that I've got enough. We should be able to do it with 2 strips, but better off compensating for any mistakes we're going to make. So I'm coming down at the top, at the middle, and then at the bottom making another 5 notches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all we've done there is put those notches in, and what I'm going to do now, take the craft knife, I've snapped off to a fresh blade, so I've got a nice clean cut. I'm going to line it up with that first notch, line it up with the end notch, make sure that I can see the middle notch so that I know that we are in a perfectly straight line, and then simply cut. I'm going to repeat that for all of them now. So keeping the knife nice and straight. You don't need a lot of pressure again. This is really thin stuff. As long as you've got a clean blade, it will cut straight through. So we'll quickly rattle through these. So we're going to do the same as well with the red, just to give us some workable material. And then we'll be good to go. Okie dokie, so we've cut our yellow and our red, so they're both ready to go now. What we're going to do with the yellow, simply take a piece, check in on the instruction manual where we've got pieces of material, and so we've got it running up to the top corner there, then it ends just at the joint on the rear post. So I'm going to take my pencil, mark that line, then with the craft knife, just trim that excess off at the end. You can do this with a pair of scissors as well, to stop it rubbing the vinyl. And then, as we did with that blue lining paper at the very start, just with the craft knife, get in underneath it, and just pull that paper back in a way. Just fold the end over for now, because all we're going to do with that is line up that adhesive end with where we want it on the body, and just press down lightly. and then we're going to pull that paper backing out from underneath it, making sure that it doesn't touch the bodywork because it's all now sticky. Or let it drop out of your hand like I did then, but as you can see, it'll pull off easy enough. So we're going to keep it taut, keep it straight, bring it down to the body, and just going to gently tap it down where I want it, keeping it central with that bottom rail until we're all the way along the bottom, checking it for straightness. That is not the straightest job I've ever done, but it will do the job. So just a quick rub down, get those air bubbles out from underneath it. There we go. So we're going to repeat that on the other side, and then also on the Bailey they've got small little T-pieces up in the corners of the bodywork. So we'll repeat that as well, looking at the instruction manual. Yep, they're just on the bottom here, and then they'll be on the tailgate side here. And then we'll move on to the red as well. Okay, so that's the yellow bits all on now, on both the body and on the tailgate. Yeah. So we'll move on to the red. The red's a little bit more complicated because we've got to kind of wrap around some of the aspects on the Bailey. So I'm not going to go through all of it, but all we're going to do technique wise is take a strip of the red. I'm going to line it up with where I want to start it, and then notch where I want to end it. Cut it, peel it back, and with it still on the end of the knife, I'm just going to line it up and drop it in place. Just like that. That is never going to be that easy the first time you try it. It's just getting used to the material, getting used to how it all works, and then just gently pushing down with your finger. We're going to go round and do the whole thing like that, and then we're going to go into the decals themselves. So that's the printed stickers. I don't think I'm getting any work as a director anytime soon. The sun is literally setting at this point in time, and I just realised that this last episode would go up to 40 odd 45 minutes, so I'm going to split it in two once more. So we're going to have an episode 5. You'll find that at the link wherever. Thank you if you've watched this far. Hopefully it's actually interesting, hopefully it's useful, more to the point, and that even if you've built kits before, that you're finding something new, or a new tip or a trick or a technique that's going to help you with your next build. So yeah, thank you very much.